Great work. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Mr Speaker, this is an unusual circumstance that I think we find ourselves in. Given that this bill was introduced by the previous Labor government, and as I was not on the Commerce Select Committee at that point, but as I understand it, it exhaustively examined the issues surrounding this legislation. It had, in general, widespread and bipartisan support, well, I think unanimous support. I thought it was looking at the former chair of the Commerce Committee. It reported back the legislation with a report that was supported unanimously. I know other colleagues were on that. And even, I'm advised, the former minister in charge of this bill, Simon Power, was in agreement with the position of the committee. Then, out of sort of under the cover of darkness, the new minister sometime later pops out a rather controversial amendment as articulated by my colleague Claire Curran, which effectively fires a torpedo into the consensus of the committee. We don't know who the minister consulted with, if he consulted with anyone. We know that this is an extremely contentious element which was an issue which was resolved by the previous Commerce Committee, as evidenced by the bill, unanimously resolved, and I believe has basically widespread support. So the question I'd have, and I know we'll delve more greatly into greater detail in the committee stage, is where has this come from? My colleague Claire Curran used the sort of colloquial term stuff up, and it appears that this is yet another one from this government. Different time, different place, but, you know, the SOE's debacle, this is a mirror image of it. No consultation, out under the cover of darkness. Maybe the minister sort of went up to the office, had a couple of barocas, had a wee think, got out the pen and paper and decided to fire this one up. And what this has created, sir, to return to my first point, is a situation where now we are faced as an opposition in the unusual position that we were supportive of this bill as it was, and now we're in a position where if Claire Curran's amendment, SOP number 123, is not accepted, confirming the previous committee's unanimous position, then we will be forced in future stages of this bill to oppose it. Now, whilst I want to make clear that many of the things that Jonathan Young, the current chair of the Commerce Committee, commented on in terms of creating an environment for innovation, for science, technology, IT and other industries, of course, I doubt whether there's anybody in the House that would be unsupportive of that stance. Maybe John Blanks, given that he's sort of a member of the honorary member of the Flat Earth Society, I don't know. But apart from that, I think we all agree. We want to obviously balance the two aspects. Well, there might be another couple of alumni over there, of course, sir. But we want to balance, of course, the dual interests. First, allowing innovators to profit from their inventions. Oh, the maestro. Now, the maestro wouldn't have messed this up. Oh, no, maybe he would. He would have at least Dr. Coleman, if he was the minister in charge of this, would probably have at least got out, had a couple of barocas, got out, consulted his colleagues, and maybe gone and talked to Simon Power, the previous minister, and said, Simon Power, why was it that you supported the committee, which in a bipartisan way unanimously resolved this issue? Why were you supportive of that position? And should he, or it was Dr. Coleman, if he were the minister, why should he change that? Because I suspect, given the large and long track record of political success that Jonathan Coleman has had in managing various campaigns and others, I say this, that Jonathan Coleman probably would not have made the same mistake that Mr Foss has made. Because as I say, and I return to this point, that we all agree with balancing the 2 points. Firstly, allowing innovators to profit from their inventions, and secondly, ensuring that the monopoly rights that accompany patents are not unduly exploited. And that was the position. It is a difficult position to reconcile that the committee, Sam Little-Ienga was a member of that committee, I believe, he voted in favour of this, as did Ms Dalzell and the Labor members. Consensus and peace broke out, and I think amongst generally the industry, well, Coomera never says how sweet it is, but that's probably true. But now we have this amendment which has popped out and has not been consulted on, or if it has, we don't know. And I would have thought that's a bad way to engage in the legislative process. Yes, of course, there are always SOPs. Yes, there are always matters to be tidied up, to be fixed, things that didn't hit the oversight of a select committee. They are as a given. But this point goes to the centre and heart of critical issues in our economy, in our innovative sectors, in our technological science and innovation sectors. And to have a minister that wanders along and says, maybe because he got his arm twisted by a few big guys in the industry, maybe, I don't know, that could be uncharitable. Maybe he just believes that he should override the unanimous view of even his own parliamentary colleagues on his side. The previous minister, who did have a long-standing interest in these matters, Simon Power, maybe he believes this is the best way to go, to just pop it out. But what he's done, and usually in commerce legislation, there is general agreement. Mr Jonathan Young nods. There is on the committee he chairs it well. There is general agreement that these are the right things to do. But this sort of smacks to me of the fiasco that we had on FEC, when things sort of popped out of the ether around SOEs. And look at the stuff up, to quote Claire Curran again, but look at the stuff up that's occurred in an appalling legislative process around some of New Zealand's biggest assets. But these geniuses over here, sir, do not learn. When they are warned that these things could happen, they do not learn, sir. They just trundle along to protect the pride and vanity of their leadership, not to actually sit back and say, maybe we got it wrong. And this is a very bizarre case, because actually, as I understand it, there was and is no politics in this. It was a unanimous position of the committee. The committee did a diligent job. It listened to the submissions. That is not to say that some submitters did not support the view of the committee ultimately, but this is a position where Labor and National and other political parties that were represented agreed on a position that was then supported by the minister in the chair at the time.
Well, someone went round the back door.
Well, someone went round the back door, my colleague says, yeah. And then Minister Craig Foss just simply has a rush of blood to various extremities of his person and comes out with this. And suddenly that political consensus is asunder. And I'd be very interested to hear my colleague Sam Latoinga's view on the record of the Parliament as one who supported this piece of legislation, supported, as I understand it, wholeheartedly, was convinced of the validity of the committee's position. I wouldn't mind an explanation from him, sir, if the minister won't give one, as to why the changes occurred. And does Mr Latoinga support the position of his minister? And if he does, okay, what's changed his mind? What's changed the other colleagues' minds that were on that committee that reported back in a unanimous way? Because there is a hell of a lot at stake for this. Claire Curran's amendment simply clarifies, makes crystal clear, in an unambiguous way, the position that existed when the bill came out of the Commerce Select Committee, that computer programs are not patentable inventions. It clarifies that position. It restores to the legislation the position of the then Commerce Committee. So we'd like some explanations, because we're not seeking to change the rules or the position here. We're seeking to restore that consensus on the side. We've heard nothing and no explanation from the minister who's proposed this. I see the Attorney General's walked in, a learned lawyer, I'm told, even by him occasionally. I'm sure he might be able to give perhaps an explanation as to why, as a member of the Cabinet, the Minister Craig Foss has proposed this SOE and this change. But somebody should, because if it is going to be rammed through by majority in this chamber, then the industries, the innovative industries, both those who support the minister's amendment, but more especially those who oppose it, will want to know why they've been sold out. They'll want to know why, and there is a duty of care, Mr Speaker, from a government that abrogates and truncates and puts the sword into the basic legislative process to give an explanation to the people of New Zealand and the sectors that it is going to negatively affect. Sir, we have heard no explanation. We were supportive of this bill, but we give notice if the current SOP is not supported, we will disengage that support of the
Interrupt the
legislation.
honourable member. A point of order, Claire Curran.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I seek leave to table the petition titled No Software Patents in New Zealand, signed by 1,078 New Zealand software companies and sole operators, including Xero, Jade and Orion
We know
Health.
what it is. Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection? There is no objection. There is objection. There is objection. I call Stephen Browning.